Hello, I am JaKayla Woolridge, and for prompt 2, I would like to speak to reflection, revision, and professional growth. As far as my experience in teaching, this upcoming school year will be year 10 for me, and I'm very excited for what year 10 is to bring. I also know that reflection improves instruction, and over the course of time, I've become intentional about reflecting on my practices on a daily basis, and also just consistently so that I can ensure that I'm able to improve my instruction immediately. Also, I wanted to point out that ESOL students need multiple ways to demonstrate learning. And so I will be sure to revisit differentiated strategies for ESOL students. And also, I wanted to note that collaboration strengthens practice. For my growth as an ESOL teacher, I will say that over the course of time, I have definitely enhanced my diverse language abilities. I have an understanding that language is not always the same, and I understand the importance of visuals, discussion, and hands-on learning for ESOL students. Now, for my original lesson that I wanted to speak on, this lesson focused on light and sound. And this lesson was taught in February of this year. And to start out the lesson for the I Do, there was a YouTube read aloud on light and sound. And then for the We Do, we watched a video and engaged with an interactive PowerPoint where we were basically answering questions from what we noted in the video on light and sound. And we also went on to engage in a teacher-led discussion. And so with that being said, students were able to share their thoughts on light and sound concepts. And then they had some independent practice worksheets. Now, for my reflection on my original lesson, I will definitely say that the lesson felt rushed. There was a lot of heavy lifting done by the teacher, so lots of teacher talk. There was very limited discussion opportunities for students, so the learning wasn't quite student-centered, and limited hands-on experience or hands-on learning experiences. So of course, again, very limited opportunities for exploration as well as discussion amongst students. Now, what was missing? I do want to share that we definitely could have engaged in some flashlight investigations, shadow exploration, sound experiments, student collaboration, and inquiry and discovery. Now, as far as addressing the needs of diverse learners, I will say that the things that are most important are visual supports, explicit vocabulary instruction, heavy teacher modeling, and supports for multilingual learners. Now, in the revised lesson design, there were definitely hands-on learning stations. Students had the opportunity to use flashlights in order to make shadows. There was a sound investigation where students were able to use rubber bands to make some sort of vibration. And this basically heavily emphasized student-centered inquiry where they were able to ask questions about what they were learning as they learned. Now, as far as the literacy integration, what it would look like for light and sound, I would have informational texts that talk about light and sound. Students would engage in partner discussions where we're intentional about asking a question in order for them to share their learning. We also made heavy use of sentence stems in order for students to basically put together a sentence about light or sound, and also engaging them in adding entries into their science journals. Now, a reflection on my revised lesson, I will definitely say that there was increased engagement amongst the students, more student ownership, greater discussion amongst students, and a stronger overall conceptual understanding of light and sound. And so, students learning and individual needs, I wanted to speak to students needing language support. This past year, my class was ESOL. And so, again, just to share the demographic of my class, I had 15 students that came from Spanish speaking homes and 3 students that were not ESOL students. And so, with that being said, most of my class would have needed a strong language support. Students needing enrichment, and this could go for all students. And I also wanted to speak to the importance of differentiation. Now, after an analysis of student work, I did see that students identified concepts, some struggled to explain their thinking in English, and there was a need for multiple ways to demonstrate learning. Now, for future instruction, I would like to ensure that there's more oral language for students to build their vocabulary. I want to also ensure that there's more collaboration, again, for students to build their vocabulary and to work together in a group setting. There's a need for additional visuals to ensure that students are able to make connections amongst the words that they're learning and those visuals, and that there's a stronger literacy integration. And so that speaks to basically having more access to maybe passages about light and sound, and so that we're able to integrate some great literacy resources into our lesson. So, as far as cultural diversity, students were encouraged to share examples of light and sound from their homes and communities. Multilingual learners use discussion, drawing, and hands on activities to demonstrate their understanding, as well as there being visual supports, providing sentence stems, and academic vocabulary to ensure that all students could participate. Students connected scientific concepts to real world experiences and cultural backgrounds. As far as the community engagement, families were encouraged to discuss the sources of light and sound found in their homes and neighborhoods. Students made connections between classroom learning and their everyday environments. Homeschool connections as well helped reinforce scientific vocabulary and concepts beyond the classroom. Learning became more meaningful because students actually saw science as a part of their daily lives. And as far as the impact on student learning, there was an increase in student participation, greater confidence amongst the students, stronger connections, and a more inclusive learning environment for students. I wanted to reflect on the graduate program overall and share how focusing on 4 specific areas, how they very closely aligned with some of the courses that I took throughout the program. For example, differentiation. It's something that I definitely consider myself wanting to continue to improve. And the aligning course that I felt best prepared me to implement differentiated instructional strategies is diverse classrooms in a global society. With that being said, I will say that over the course of my past 9 years in education, um, none of my classes look the same. None of them. It is ever changing. And so we as instructional specialists, we have to ensure that we are setting up students for success and we are incorporating diversity into the curriculum so that students can feel represented and seen. As far as literacy development, the aligning course that I feel is most befitting or best prepared me to continue to improve is investigating language arts, and that speaks to itself. I would consider myself a lifelong learner, so of course I have made some improvement over the course of the program, but I want to continue to become better. As far as data analysis, the aligning course that I chose and that I felt best prepared me um, for becoming someone that is or specializes in data analysis is school and classroom assessment. And I feel that this course best prepared me for that because we had a culminating exercise where we had to look at a data set and actually deeply engage in an analysis of that data. And so, again, I do want to say, yes, I have gotten better with analyzing data, but again, I want to continue to improve. And also, the last focal area or focal point is family engagement. The aligning course that I feel best prepared me for ensuring that I knew how to engage families is the course entitled um, The Young Child, Home, and Community. And so, with that being said, I learned some very important strategies in order to continue to engage families so that we can ensure that all students are successful. For my resource review, I primarily referenced the resource authored by Matthew. And what I learned is that reflection improves decision making and also instruction. I made the connection to my teaching by reflecting on what could have been done better to enhance the light and sound lesson overall. Engagement. And I know that for my professional growth, I do want to say that reflection improves practice. We have continuous learning. Um, I am, I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, so the learning will never stop. And I want to ensure that I'm meeting the diverse student needs. So that's something that I definitely want to continue to grow in. And here I have included my references, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to engage with prompt 2.